While Robert Kennedy Jr. may be best known for his anti-vaccine beliefs, he has been surprisingly effective pursuing the other part of his Make America Healthy agenda. Several states have adopted parts of his platform designed to battle obesity and chronic disease. States have taken steps to ban schools from serving ultra-processed foods, for example, and to prevent food from being used, prevent snack foods from being used, to prevent using food aid to buy things like candy or soda. So, Rick, is he onto something with his Make America Healthy agenda?
Yes, some of RFK's agenda makes sense. Most countries have much stricter rules on the use of things like food dye. Trying to make school lunches healthier makes a lot of sense. But two things I'd like to note. First, when Democrats have suggested these types of changes, for instance, when the Reagan administration tried to call ketchup a vegetable, they stepped in and said we need to improve the nutrition of school lunches. Or when they talked about a soda tax, they were ridiculed as being part of the nanny state. It's just somewhat ironic that now RFK has become the nation's nanny. But more importantly, the reasonable parts of RFK's agenda really are small potatoes compared to, say, his attacks on vaccines. We just saw a record number of cases of measles being reported after having pretty much eradicated it. Reducing kids' exposure to food dye while increasing their exposure to things like measles doesn't seem like an appropriate trade-off.
So, Jenny, will Americans accept foods to regulate accept this idea of regulating what they eat?
Yeah, I really appreciate Rick's perspective there, because I have the same reactions. Like, wow, suddenly we have kind of a nanny state, which generally speaking, Republicans don't push as their agenda this sort of strong government regulation into corporate and private interests. But I will say that the MAHA agenda is an interesting mixed bag. There are a set of policies that he's pushing that are actually quite popular. So the banning of synthetic dyes, for example, in foods, 60% of the public is actually in favor of that. I personally am in favor of that. So it is a weird concoction, if you will, of policies.
It's sort of interesting to see that this kind of self-care movement, the movement for eating healthy and all that stuff, that has kind of dovetailed towards right-wing discourses and echo chambers. And you can see a lot of this healthcare, self-help and all that stuff kind of becoming a little bit more MAGA over time. I agree with both of my colleagues here, right? There's one thing that, taking away dye from food dye and everything, and ultra-processed food, those are good things, but then this vaccine skepticism and fighting against vaccine. So I have a nice tagline. It's like, live free of dye and then die early, right? Like that feels like his direction in which we are going, but I don't know.
Yeah, I'm glad you're not in marketing.
I know, right?
Well, I think Americans, per our culture, are exceptionalist, and we think we're the best at everything, and we're not when it comes to nutrition. And when we think about the role of government in nutrition, I think a lot of Americans think that the government generally is keeping us safe in terms of our food, and they're not. Right now, food companies can put any chemical they want into food and self-affirm that it's generally recognized as safe, and they don't even have to refer this to the FDA. And the FDA looks through some of these, but not the thousands of chemicals that get put in our food. So I think there's significant misunderstanding in terms of how the system works. And I think Kennedy's doing some of the nerdy work to try to fix that. But on the flip side, as was referenced, if you're cutting farm-to-school programs that help farmers and help kids at the same time, you're not making us any healthier.
So what about one thing he's been pushing is getting rid of fluoride. For instance, our water systems are mostly fluoridated, and this was a big issue in the 1950s, right? And
in the 70s.
Now it's back.
Yeah, no, it's wild actually, because there is good evidence that fluoride is quite beneficial, especially for developing bodies. I live out in the country, we're on a well, and this was a major issue for us because we don't have fluoride. So we had to do extra work with our kids to make sure that they had healthy teeth. And dentists, if you ask any given dentist, they're like, what on earth is happening right now? Same with pediatricians, by the way, around vaccines.
But we do have fluoride in toothpaste and in other ways to get it now.
It's not enough, though. So that's the problem, is you need the fluoride in drinking water to help in those developing little teeth.
Do you think, I mean, is he just doing this on his own? Does he have the support of the president to do all these things?
No, I mean, he has a lot of support from a lot of base, right? There's these bloggers, there are these influencers in the media that really support, and many of them are actually left-wing too, not just Republicans, that has support from, but I don't know about the vaccine skepticism, how far that would go, but it seems that he also walks a fine line on that part. He's not completely against vaccines, but he says that things like, oh, it's up to the people to
but
do
when
it.
you take all of the
you cannot
people,
force people to do it, and
you
so
name
on.
all these skeptics to vaccines to these important councils, then I think he's clearly showing his stand there.